Okay, we will delay the start of this meeting by 1 minute.
It doesn't really explain why everybody else is here. So you got my text?
Big debate about even coming.
Pat. Me too, Mayor. Me too.
Are we started?
Yep, we weren't ready for you to start.
Yep.
So she's waiting for you to start it.
4:46. We're on record for work session on capital improvements.
Thank you, Mayor. Better turn that on. For the record, I didn't get in my seat until you were here. I was waiting. Yep, tonight for the work session, we are talking about the 5-year CIP, the 5-year capital improvement program for the city of Soldotna, which also year one includes the proposed FY 27 capital budget. The 5-year CIP is a long-range planning document that describes and prioritizes our major capital projects. Typically, major capital projects and CIP projects are a one-time expenditure in excess of either 100,000 or 50,000. 50,000 is kind of the threshold we've been using. That's not a kind of an operational need that doesn't fit into the operating budget. Most of those contracted services are for lower amounts. For example, carpeting in the police station that costs 22,000. That would be a capital item or a contracted services under the operating budget, not in the capital budget. These are for larger projects. So the 5-year CIP in front of you is the long-range planning document for the next 5 fiscal years. And then again, and as noted, year one, FY 27 would be the proposed capital budget. So there will be a resolution for the 5-year CIP, adopting that planning document, and then a companion ordinance with an introduction and public hearing, actually appropriating the funds for the projects identified in year one, FY 27. Just as a real quick recap, the ways we deliver capital projects at the city of Soldotna, we have our 5-year CIP, which is our planning document. We have a legislative priority resolution that council passes that identifies priority projects for the city and our community. Those are our 2 planning type documents. And then we have the capital budget adopted annually, appropriating specific funds for specific projects. And then, of course, there are always mid-year appropriations. So at any time, council, through passing an ordinance, can appropriate funds to accomplish a capital project. There are 2 CIPs. One addresses projects funded out of the general fund, and the other are projects funded out of the utility fund. As you all know, those funds are very separately managed. The other funds don't have a CIP adopted by council. There is an airport CIP that the FAA requests that the city develop. There is no capital budget per se for the utility fund. All capital projects for the utility fund are appropriated mid-year. So an ordinance is brought before council for each individual project, rather than what you'll see for the general fund, which is the capital budget, which in this case, we are proposing 6 projects to be funded under the FY 27 general fund capital budget. And at any time, feel free to stop me and ask any questions. I'll kind of go over a few basics here and intros, and then perhaps I'll jump right into talking about each one of these projects. Rachel Nash, our city librarian, is here, and she can speak a little bit about a library project that has been a priority and has been kind of pushed down a number of years as we've inched forward with some of the design documents and then trying to fit it into our fiscal plan. And then, of course, City Clerk Blankenship can also chime in on the council chambers audiovisual project. Again, this 5-year CIP, it's a capital asset management policy, takes into account, scheduling, fiscal resources, and manpower considerations. We don't want to plan, millions and millions of dollars of projects in one year and nearly none in another year. We want to be able to deliver those projects with the resources we have, the manpower we have. We want to anticipate critical needs as they come up so that we're not rushing to repair a roof, for example. And the shop roof is a good example of it being on the 5-year CIP for about 5 years. And then we sought grant funding for several years. We're unable to find that. Funded a design, had one last year of trying to find outside funding, and then proposed to council and funded the construction, and that is underway this summer. So that's why you don't see that project on the CIP this year. When we look at developing the 5-year CIP, we take into account department head input. We send out an email and talk about projects and needs, boards and commissions, and then our various planning documents. We have our comp plan, which is actually getting fairly old now. It is scheduled for FY27 to renew the comp plan. The previous plan was completed in 2011. And our community and our city we've achieved a lot of the goals in the comp plan, and some things have changed since then. So it's good to revisit that. We have a streets inventory and asset management plan that we also consult. That is actually getting a bit stale at this point. And we have an RFP prepared to go out to renew that plan this summer, or a consultant will assess the condition of all of our streets and help with a prioritization and a treatment plan for each one of our streets and the different types of streets and the different types of rehabilitation, reconstruction, et cetera. We've got a trails and parks plan that we consult in regards to trails and parks. And then we have a few various condition assessments for some of our structures, the most robust being the SRSC. That was completed through architects and engineers that identified the various components of that structure, their age, and their needs. When we look at each individual project, we analyze the cost of that project. We look at the operating and maintenance cost impacts. As we all know, the upfront capital cost of a project is minuscule compared to the long-term cost of operating of many of those assets. We look at life cycle costing, different funding sources and opportunities. Are there opportunities to find outside or grant funding to achieve those projects? The timing of the project, how it meshes with existing needs, existing priorities, manpower, as I mentioned, and the criticality of that need. A roof versus carpet, critical needs, things like that. And then we ask, as we work internally. We ask for, a robust description, the justification for it, any progress to date, any board or other support behind that project. On the 5-year CIP, the beginning few years are more refined, more, I don't want to say accurate, but have a higher level of confidence in both their timeliness of when they need to be accomplished, and also, the costs, and then also funding opportunities. So some projects are towards the tail end. Fireweed Street extension, for example, is an important project. It would be fairly transformative in the opportunities that it affords as far as our transportation network, residential housing, things of that nature, but it really is reliant upon grant funding and grant opportunities. And having projects on our identified CIP goes a long ways with grantors and eligibility criteria for some grant opportunities. So having the Fireweed extension, Homestead Lane extension, some of these bigger projects that we'd like to accomplish on our CIP does lend some gravity and importance to them. This year's capital budget's fairly modest again, recognizing the city's recent outlay and bond debt. We've done a pretty robust analysis and discussion with council in the public meetings about city finances. So we've got a pretty good grasp on where we're at with that. And so our budget this year is fairly modest. I'll get into a few details about that later. And I will, I'll end with that being my intro and take a pause, answer any questions that anyone may have at this point, and then I'll kind of get into each individual project.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor Parker.
Thank you. I was wondering, didn't we used to have the storefront improvement in this? Where is that now? I look for it in Councilman Perry's budget, but I couldn't find it.
Yes. Thank you, Vice Mayor Parker. The storefront improvement project, we chose to utilize the capital budget to fund that program because projects in that fund don't lapse at the end of the fiscal year. So they can roll over, as many capital projects take multiple fiscal years to complete through funding and design and construction. So we have adequate funds in that account from the last replenishment, which was, and I believe last fiscal year, we put 15,000 in. I can tell you, we did 15,000 in FY26. I believe the year before, we did not need to fund it. I reached out to Economic Development Planning Director Linda Mitchell. She indicated that they have one entity they're working with that will likely not be completed before the end of the fiscal year. And that encumbrance for that particular building's work will probably roll over to the next fiscal year. So no new funding is needed in the current fiscal year, so no replenishment. Yep. Okay, I'll jump into the general fund 5-year CIP, and first and foremost, FY27, which is the most fun because again, that is our current proposed capital budget. So these are the projects that the administration is proposing to fund through the capital budget in FY27. First one on the list, one that we've all been talking about, ice rink refrigeration system design. This is the engineering and design to create some bid-ready documents for the mechanical plant for the ice rink. That system is over 35 years old. We talked about it in our work session previously. There are kind of 3 core components to the ice rink out there. There's the mechanical plant. There is the concrete floor with the refrigerant tubing in it, the dashboard system around it, and then associated changes. This project would just be looking at the mechanical plant. If we were to pursue well, I take that back. This project is professional services only. So we will analyze the replacing the floor, changing the size potentially from Olympic size to NHL, depending on those discussions, and then updating the dashboard system to the more up-to-date, safe, and easier to remove and put up dashboard system. So this is the design, professional services design phase only for the ice rink refrigeration system replacement. And I said it doesn't include the flooring and the dashboard. It does analyze those systems as well, but there is no construction funding associated with this $450,000. We had the consultant's report that we shared a number of months ago. That included some estimates on the design phase. We used that. We also reached out to the Carlson Center, who underwent a very, very, very similar upgrade to their facility in Fairbanks recently, and got some data from them. And also reached out to a consulting group that actually worked on that project to get some more kind of upfront up-to-date numbers and estimates on what it would take to complete the design phase. So at this time, we're proposing to go ahead and fund the design phase to work on the ice rink refrigeration replacement. At the conclusion of that, we'll actually have a more refined professional cost estimate for the actual cost to do the construction phase. Right now, we've got a kind of a rough order of magnitude estimate, which is not a number that we'd be prepared to move forward with in any confidence. So after the design phase, we'll have a much higher degree of confidence in what it's going to cost.
Kara?
I appreciate this is difficult, but I'm going to ask it anyway. In the next 5 years, how much do you see us spending on the sports center if we did all the things that it needs? And I'm just looking for a ballpark.
It's a good thing Joel's not here.
Mhm.
I really can't speak for all that it needs because
understand.
there's a lot of different components. The critical needs, the things that are at end of life that we know we need to take care of is the mechanical plant that runs on R22 refrigerant. Can't make it, can't buy it, can't buy it new. We've bought used. But council did recently appropriate funds that will allow us to continue to operate that with an appropriate level of risk until we can fund the construction, and that was the purchase of spare R22. That's on order. The rebuilding of some compressors, that is underway. There was a handful of other mitigating efforts to make sure that we believe we'll be able to operate until we can get the thing reconstructed. The last estimate for the whole thing, I believe, was around 8 or 9 million, and that's a big range, I know. But that's because it was a rough order of magnitude number. But 8 or 9 million, and that's those core components I'm talking about. That doesn't involve Joel's locker room skylights or what have you. But those are the critical needs at the facility, 8 or 9 million.
Can I follow up? Is it realistic to expect that, again, in the next 5 years, again, with the estimates you have, that there'll be over $10 million?
In the next 5 years?
Yes.
I think there's the probability of that. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like any old facility or old vehicle. Is it going to go 5 years or 10? We have to assess our our level of risk that we're willing to take should it fail. And I think we're taking appropriate steps to make sure that we can make those changes at the right time. So. Yeah, I do. Yes, the professional consultants have told us that in the next, I can pull it up.
But
Next 3 to 5 years,
Mhm.
between $8 and $9 million is what the consultants have told us.
And I want to be very clear, I'm not being critical in any way whatsoever. What I'm looking for is to determine as much as we can accurate numbers. So that I want to be real clear. I think we're doing everything we can.
Yeah.
I think we're doing some band-aiding in order to get by, which I understand. Again, I'm not critical. But at least from my standpoint, significant long-term out, I think we need to look at all options, including a bond issue. The sports center was put in place after, again, a very good community effort, but again, through a bond issue, through an agreement. I don't know how we can do all the different things that are on the agendas that we have without some additional income. And again, and so what I'm trying to look at is to see how large of a pot do we need to be looking at? And I think rather than people telling me, oh, I'm surprised, I didn't know there'd be these costs. I think we get information all the time, and it's not a surprise to what's going on out there. Okay, a lot of steps, very good steps, very comprehensive and conscientious steps have been taken. But people seem to be easily surprised when all of a sudden there's a large cost. And so what I'm looking for is to get some sense of those potential larger costs so that we as a council can decide what's the best way, obviously with administration and with everyone else. And so that's why I was looking for that number, and I appreciate, and I understand we're just talking ballpark.
Yeah, and I'll follow up with a more concise answer. The consulting group that does this nationwide, and including the Carlson Center that I spoke about previously, they said that 3 to 5 years, you should expect to spend between $8 and $9 million. And acknowledging that we're running on systems that are old that could break, I do think that we did our due diligence. The council appropriated $250,000 to safeguard against catastrophic immediate failure, to buy us those 3 to 5 years. And then after that, it's just risk management and analysis. You know, do we go an extra year without finding large sums of money? And what's the risk? And what's the outcome? And is that acceptable or not to the city and the community? So yes, to answer your question, 3 to 5 years, 8 to 9 million, depending on our risk tolerance.
I would add to that, that's part of the reason for the design study, to give us that more concrete answer. And then you referenced a bond package possibly, and this will give us more information to which direction we go. Bond package, or do we have another source?
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think the main point here is it's mainly just the hockey rink portion. There's other wish list things out there over and above just the hockey.
That's correct. Hockey, figure skating, the ice sheet.
Vice Mayor Parker.
And as I look at our 5-year plan, I see for FY '28, potential for beginning the replacement of the system and the bleachers at the ice arena. And then at the end of the 5-year capital improvement, we've got the ice arena floor and dashboards. So we've got in this 5-year plan right now, approximately $10 million allocated towards the ice arena. And we know it's something we need to do. And we hope that the funds that we have appropriated to make the purchases to keep the Band-Aid on in the next couple of years while we look at putting the replacement in, because it will take time also, that those Band-Aids stay in place.
That's correct. And as we inch closer with more data to make better informed decisions, and like, you know, City Manager Bauer said, this design phase funding will give us great data and better understanding of what's it really going to take, and what are the lead times, and what are the true costs. And we did, like many of these projects, we sought grant opportunities, and there were a few of them. We went after a few of them. There were some hockey association things. There was various and assorted, but we were not successful, and it was time to request funding through the capital budget to move forward with the design.
Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
Another component, and I can appreciate this, can be more difficult than what's needed in terms of expenditures. But it would seem to me it'd be very helpful to the city, again, conscientiously, is looking at what are the revenues that are being derived by these facilities. In other words, to go anywhere and talking about a potential bond issue, we need to have very clear data in terms of how much is being produced, how much revenue is being turned over in the community because of these. And so that, from my standpoint, it's important to not focus only on the expenditures necessary, which is critical, and that's certainly what we do. But in order to go out to the public and speak to them accurately, we need to have some data in terms of how much revenue is being produced by the different facilities, the different things that we're putting together. And I think that's a component that would be very helpful as we continue to move forward. Thank you.
Continue.
Okay, thank you. And as noted, Rachel, actually, we've grown in library staff. What time do you have to leave? Okay, we'll get there. The next project, the Centennial K Beach Property Master Plan. This has been on the CIP for a while. This is a master plan for that corridor along K Beach that includes Centennial and the terrible intersection that it is, the museum, the softball fields, the baseball fields, the equestrian center, the high school fields, now a field house and an ice arena. It is a growing, robust corridor, and we continue to get more and more interest in that area. And we want to deliberately move forward. We want to deliberately develop that area. And to do so, we need to have a master plan and have a better understanding of what impacts there are to development there, and what type of responsible development should we be looking at? And that's everything from streets and transportation and utilities, and what entities can fit in there. The true kind of master plan, land use planning for that area. It's been on the list for a while, and we are proposing to fund that professional services analysis.
Go ahead.
Just a question about this, because I believe this came up sometime back. It's just been a while since I've heard about it. But I vaguely recall when I last heard about the potential of exploring a master plan for that area, it was looking at exploring displacing the fields there and the rodeo fields, and potentially using that as developable land for commercial space. I just want to make sure that if we explore a master plan there, it's incorporating continuation of those fields for the Little League and then also the equestrian rodeo grounds as well.
Okay. Yeah. And that is a good example of the benefit of doing that master plan, is to flesh out and understand what is important to the city and what are our needs, and to put that in an adopted plan by council that says this is our vision for what this area needs to support. There have been, over decades and decades, various thoughts about moving all kinds of different things, right? When the field house was a borough and city of Kenai, there was talk about moving baseball fields. So there's been a lot of different things. This is a good opportunity to have public meetings and have a council adopted plan.
I'm just curious if we could assure the public that if we go into this planning process, the question of moving those current public facilities out of there is not even a question we're considering.
I think if that is what the council's wishes are, that can be developed into the solicitation documents.
Okay.
But there also will be an opportunity. Typically we would solicit this and say, hey, we want assistance in a typical land use planning, master planning document, and that's going to look at everything. And the input that is provided to them is just like a comp plan, a citywide comp plan. There'll be a component that says, what is the vision and what's important for this area, and that input should be reflected in the plan.
Okay.
So that opportunity absolutely will be there for both the public, in the community, the users, and the public officials.
Do you know if there was any kind of request this year for any assistance on building projects or anything for like the baseball fields?
I'm not aware of any assistance requested. There have been various inquiries about changes, bringing buildings in, burying holding tanks. Annually, as different people are doing different things out there, we do get requests. There's a lease. It's city land. It's under a lease. The lease dictates the city needs to approve improvements to that land. And so not any specific requests for assistance in building anything at this time that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, the next one, storm drain and street repair. This is a project that was actually funded in a previous capital budget prior to bidding the field house. And during the crazy bidding time of the field house and our professional cost estimates that said that we needed to add out some parking lots and we didn't have enough money, and we needed to make sure that we had adequate funds prior to bidding that project, we defunded this project and put it towards the field house. And so it is still a need. It's kind of a breakup in springtime major issue where we spend a lot of manpower and equipment out there dealing with a flooded street because we've got a storm drain pipe issue. So this year we're proposing to go ahead and fund that and get that accomplished. I know Scotty's crew will be very excited, as well as the utility crew that helps out. So this is simply taking care of a storm drain failure in the Kobuk-Sohai Lane area. The next project is the City of Soldotna Strategic Plan. That was one of the attachments in the work session. And Jeanette can probably speak more eloquently about it than I, but this is, this is a public development strategy that will, help. Johnny, you're putting it up? There it is. So yeah, an assessment of current conditions, strengths, where do we want to be? What are desired outcomes? What actions and steps and initiatives do we need to have to make sure that we get to where we plan to go? And then, how do we measure success? And then there's some information on the value of a strategic plan. I know there are other organizations and public agencies and municipalities that have underwent a similar process and have found it to be of high value.
Mr. Joseph?
I just want to say thank you for including this potentially in our 5-year CIP starting next year. I think it's well past due. We desperately need an update to the comprehensive plan. So I do fully support that. The existing comprehensive plan is fairly dated at this point. It predates my time on council. I was just curious what we could expect for potential timeline on that, because I've never been involved in the development of a comprehensive plan. I'm looking forward to that. I misheard that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is a strategic plan, and really the first one that I will have, if it's funded, the first one I will have gone through in my career at the city. The comprehensive plan is on the 5-year CIP in FY28. This strategic plan is programmed for FY27 to be funded. And as far as the timeline goes, for the capital budget, the introduction would be the last meeting of June, and then the public hearing, first meeting of July, when FY27 funding is available. And then at that point, we would work on outreach to a consulting group that would guide us through this process.
I was jumping ahead. I was looking at
Yeah.
the comp plan line for FY28. My question still stands for that one, though. I was just curious if you could speak to the timeline for comp plan development, because that's, again, not a process I've been able to participate with in the past. I'm looking forward to the comp plan development.
Yes.
Currently, the planning director is working on really laying the groundwork for the I don't want to say new comp plan, because that isn't really what you do. You further develop it. And her work is going into history to see what has been completed, what still needs to be completed, and then an analysis of her perspective of what needs to be completed. And then we go into the full compound process. So she's still in the staff part of the process before we go on to the consultant part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
The vice mayor prompted me. Thank you, Vice Mayor. The comp plan is a 2030 plan, so expires in 2030. However, best practices refresh or renew, or there's a better technical term, every 5 years, a review really of it every 5 years. So the review is happening now, and along with, the thoughts of what should happen, and then it goes to the consultant and full, then public process as well.
Mr. Carey?
It would seem to me that as we are looking forward, and certainly as I heard you say, they're going to look at what the needs are from the past and forward. It seems quite likely from a standpoint of revenue from the federal government, which is, again, a great deal of what the state get is actually the federal money. But it looks like we're facing a fiscal drought here in the next few years. At least not a good deal of what I read in terms of the future is that there's going to be less and less money coming out of DC, which means less and less for Juneau. So I would hope that as we continue to move forward and as we look at things, we assess what our expectation is. I think we've been extremely fortunate. And even just last meeting, again, another project, again, almost $1 million again. I think we've been very, very fortunate. However, I believe it's very likely we're facing a drought in terms of fiscally. And so that as we move forward, and I agree, all these things are necessary, and melding them all together to decide what to do is very important. And so that I hope that, although I like to very much be an optimist, I think financially we have to be maybe a little pessimistic as to what we expect to find that the federal government and the state government is able to give to us. And so I also very much appreciate the work that's being done and that we're looking at all these things. And this is the right time to do it. I think before the tsunami hits, it's nice to know what our civil defense capabilities are.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, again, I don't want to, point to it too much, but it's incredible data and value of the work session where we looked at the past, 10 years of DCCED legislative grants or DEC grants. And so we do track that and try to forecast and I think you're right. I think, we're facing fewer and fewer funding opportunities as you get to the lower levels of government, in addition to more responsibilities being pushed down to the lower levels as well. So it's kind of a double whammy.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bringing us back to the strategic plan, I think that's a good idea. We've got a lot of different things on our plate that directions we could be going. So if we had a strategic plan that shows us where we are today, different directions we could go. If we turn right, we're going to go this way. If we turn left, we're going to go that way. That it will help not only the council, the administration, but as there's changes that occur, and both the administration and the council, that they have a document that they can look at. So I think this is a good idea and supportive of keeping this in this year's capital improvement plan.
Great.
Moving on.
Moving on, next one, very simple, purchase and install a new columbarium. Undertaker Blankenship has informed me that there is zero capacity at this point. Zero. So it is completely full and reserved. And so I think we're actively having to turn folks away. And so this is simply to purchase and place a new columbarium adjacent to the existing one. This is we did carve this portion out on FY28. There's a memorial park improvements where there's signage, revegetation, road improvements, and pavilion construction. That formerly included the columbarium. Those improvements are going to remain in 28. We're proposing to fund the columbarium, which is an immediate need. The final one is the council chamber audio and video upgrade. This is at the request from council and Ms. Blankenship to update audio and video in the council chambers. As you're all aware, we've had ups and downs with the technology. It continues to improve. There are opportunities out there. It's not a cheap fix, but it will enhance the public facing aspect of our council meetings. It will include the newest technology of pan-tilt cameras. There's a robust scope of work that City Clerk Blankenship put together, consulted with others in her industry who have done such upgrades recently. And this request is the last one in FY27 capital budget.
Mr. Carey.
Is it possible in our discussion of this expansive extension of this technology that we have, we'd probably need a couple of years of a very highly technical person overseeing it and helping us adjust using it. So it just seems to me that should be part of almost like an employment contract.
We'll see if we can get it in the contract. Agreed, 100%. Mm-hmm.
Moving along.
Moving along. So one important thing to note right now, this is the work session for the 5-year CIP and the FY27 capital budget. We just talked about the FY27 capital budget year one. This is for the general fund. You can see a total cost of $1.2 million. Again, taking into our recent capital outlay, our fiscal situation, the $300,000 I spoke about for the storm drain and street repair that was appropriated, that was removed from that project and appropriated towards the field house when we were bidding the project because our cost estimates showed that we were underfunded. That appropriation still exists under the field house account, so it will come from the funding for this for the storm drain and street repair project will come from that field house account and be reappropriated. So there will be no net impact to the general fund, right? So that 1.2 will be reduced by 300,000. It's still coming from the general fund, but it had previously been appropriated to the field house. That is also true for the ice rink refrigeration system design. It's the Spilwautena Regional Sports Complex of the two facilities. The funding is available in the field house account, and we're proposing to reallocate that for the ice rink design. So that also will have no net effect on the general fund. So in reality, what we're looking at is a capital budget of about 450,000, which is a drastic reduction over years past. And we have in that work session document a list of each year's capital budget. And then, of course, the mid-year appropriations. So just wanted to note that. And that will be as a part of the legislation with the account figures when it comes as an ordinance in front of you. And now we'll bounce through the years 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, these are planning projects. These can and will change depending on needs, funding availability, opportunity, things of that nature. The comp plan, we just spoke about that. Councilmember Chilson, I too are excited to update that document. It's time for a refresher. Vice Mayor Parker's correct. There is a shelf life, but they do advise refreshing and then a full renewal. So that process will take place hopefully in the coming years. Memorial Park improvements, I just spoke about that. That's the remaining projects that we identified at the Community Memorial Park. And then again, we spoke briefly about the construction phase of the replace ice refrigeration system. Again, this is a ROM estimate provided by B32 and our consulting group for the mechanical plant only. When we do finish the design, then we'll know better what it is, a higher probability of what it's going to cost. So that number will be refined, obviously, next when we get that design done. Ice arena bleacher repair. This one has been on the 5-year CIP. This is just fixing the motors and the equipment that makes them go in and out. We're having to do some of that by hand. We've postponed that. It's not supposed to be funded because we're going to go into a design phase here. We're going to have more information about the improvements needed at the ice rink. The crew can continue to get it done with what they have. So will we fund just the motor replacement or will it be something different? We'll find out as we get to the design phase.
Do we have a safety issue there that should be taken care of right away?
No, sir, not a safety issue, just a challenge in getting them in and out. What you should do is push a button and you wait 3 minutes as it slowly comes out. Instead, it's a 30-minute deal with 3 guys instead of 1, but not a safety issue for occupants or the operators. Riverfront redevelopment project. This one doesn't have a cost associated to be determined. This is an existing project. Again, acknowledging the importance of the implementation phase for the economic development project. That will continue to probably be on the 5-year CIP at this time, unless advised otherwise. Just to acknowledge it as a priority, but we don't have a defined timeframe or scope at this point. And then finally, riverfront redevelopment. I'm sorry, library improvements. Rachel, you want to come up and give a real quick version? I'll give you the captions share.
Thanks. All right. Yeah, I do appreciate the opportunity to speak. I got the call from Kyle, 20 minutes before the meeting started that the library improvement project had been pushed. And I think this is the 3rd time since we really started actively talking about this project that I got that call. So I hope 3rd time is the charm. I just felt like I needed to let you guys know about some of the challenges that we've been facing at the library. To summarize, our library staff and the services have outgrown the staff workspace. So this project is really in response to a space issue that's compounded over the years. Our last renovation was in 2013, and ever since then, we've drastically increased our services and our programs. We've also increased our staff. We've got awesome staff, one of whom is here. Unfortunately, our workspace has not grown with us for some reason. So we have been making do, I think, in very creative ways. We have been very patient with each other as well. As you can imagine, when you're in a kind of compact space, it can get a little bit chaotic. And so really what I'm here to tell you is that this is becoming a safety issue. It's reached a tipping point where we really are seeing barriers to providing adequate services, keeping staff safe. It's been a real barrier to our productivity. And so I do believe that this is a necessary and practical step that we need to take soon so that we can continue providing all the great services that our community expects from us. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Ms. Wackler?
So was there a reason provided for why it was put off for another, I guess it's not for you, is the question. Okay.
Yes, here. So we looked at several funding scenarios. There's three kind of components to the library project, and we just finished the design. So we did, the last time we pushed it, we said, we're gonna break it up similar to what we've done on other projects, and we did fund the design phase, and we just completed that. There's kind of three core areas of work. Obviously, it's most cost efficient to do it all at once. It came in, like many things, much more expensive than we were expecting at about $880,000. So one of our funding strategies was to break out the most critical need, which is the office area. There's also the fireplace area and some walls and some tutor room work, as well as a bathroom relocation to better serve the taught area and the reading area. That's still, unfortunately, the highest priority is also the highest cost, about $660,000. So looking at just our fiscal constraints, we decided that that is a project that we would push to FY28. And then in the meantime, try to address, issues through, smaller changes. I know we talked a little bit about cubicle walls, which doesn't really work in there, but some smaller mitigating efforts to get us to FY28. We're planning on kind of revamping our whole CIP process and capital planning as we have dedicated a revenue and funding source for that. And so that should be in place as well to help guide us through that process. So that was kind of the thought process there.
I guess I would just respond with, I don't think it's gonna get cheaper in the future. So if there's anything that we could move around, we do have other revenue sources that we do know are coming on the horizon potentially. If there's any way that we can move this up in the process, I would be in support of that. Obviously, we're talking about 5-year CIPs, so we're not talking about stuff that can happen tomorrow. But being that the planning stage has already been done and I would like to see this move forward as quickly as possible. Our library is utilized, and I did have a chance to tour the library as well as Kenai's library and see the tripping hazards and things that are developing with having that many people utilizing a space. So if there's anything we can do to move this along, being that it has already gone through a lot of significant parts of the project that are only going to have to, when we push it off, be done again. I am in support. If there is money in the bottom of the couches that we can get this project moving, I would be in support of that. So,
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
All right, thanks. And Rachel has a meeting that she stayed late to be here, so they probably have to scoot. Yeah. Okay, jumping into and that project is scheduled for the very next fiscal capital budget, and those additional revenues are intended to help us achieve more projects. The next item, replace playground equipment at Salton Creek Park. This is a big number. Playgrounds are astonishingly expensive. There's fall protection. There's very specific equipment that is, I mean, it's kind of like buying furniture. It's high dollar because you don't buy it very often, I presume. But this is to replace the existing equipment at Solana Creek Park. It was a volunteer-built park, it was fabulous. But some of the components are seeing the wear and tear and the age. There's been some vandalism there, as most folks know. So it's time to re-up that. It's an expensive item. Another project where, we're seeking grants and grant opportunities. We did actually apply for a grant and were unsuccessful. I think we were notified a few weeks ago about that. But it was a low barrier to apply. Those are the best, even if it's a low chance, if it's not time consuming and quick, we give it a shot. Reconstruct Merrill Avenue. This is an existing project, but with a reduced price. So we hope to have funding to reconstruct Merrill Avenue. We requested federal funding, and we're lucky to receive CDS funding for that, but for less than we asked. So this would be supplemental funding to the grant for the reconstruction of Marydale. Rotary Park update. This came through Joel and Parks. Rotary Park down Funny River Road. The elevated boardwalk is in pretty bad shape, very well used and fixing to be again here really soon. And then also repairing some of the string bank that folks don't treat too well. The park last saw a major improvement.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So isn't Rotary Park improvements, I think Joel said he's been talking with Kenai River Sportfish and maybe Kenai Watershed Forum to help get them involved in funding some of these improvements?
Yes, that is absolutely true. It's on the CIP and it's got a dollar figure attached to it, but like many of these projects, we will strive as hard as we can to find funding sources and opportunities. I do believe you're correct that he's been talking to those entities and others. One aspect of this also is that I'm proud that Soldotna is one of the few areas on the world-renowned Kenai River that has ADA accessible fishing. And there may be some opportunities for funding for that to take care of our existing and to enhance what we've got. So.
Go ahead.
Okay. Homestead Lane construction. This has been on the list for some time now. This is connecting Mullen Court to East Redoubt. We all know that East Redoubt from mid-June to mid-August is pretty much a no left turn zone unless you want emergency services to show up. So we did apply for a CTP grant through the state of Alaska. We're able to score high enough to go in front of the project evaluation board, but did not score high enough there to get funded. We intend to reapply at the next round of openings. We're hopeful that that project and other projects that we apply through the CTP will be successful. The recent formation of the MPO transportation planning in the valley now makes them ineligible for CTP projects. So that will spread the wealth, if you will, and hopefully give Peninsula and Soldotna projects a better opportunity at getting that funding through the state of Alaska and the federal government. So we will be reapplying Homestead Lane and hopefully being successful there.
I want to add something to that. This ties back to what Kyle was speaking about earlier about the streets plan that he's working on now. Part of what we're doing, it's of course the assessment of all streets, but also specifically this area, this safety area for safety improvements. The commissioner was going to be here, but unfortunately had to cancel. And we were taking him to that area as well as, of course, Arena Avenue to have him experience it. We've spoken to the commissioner about this project before, and he did state that he did want to come down and see it and to see if there was any partnership with DOT. So this one we are keeping on DOT's radar and in their face. So the commissioner is going to come at a different time and we'll make sure he gets there.
The next one, the SRSC conference room remodel design. This one's been modified. So in the past, we had proposed remodeling the conference rooms. And then we proposed expanding them, essentially demolishing them, expanding them and building new. And at this time, Joel has taken a look at his whole department, his services that he provides, the community needs and what they're using it for, and not recommending a full remodel of the conference room, but an update to the space to better meet the current community needs. It would be smaller things like new room partitions, flooring, AV equipment, and other small updates to modernize our existing conference rooms. Much more attainable project.
With the kitchen area.
It can. So it's a TBD right now. I think Joel's still analyzing that. Again, as we get kind of further out here, it's in year 4. It gives us a couple years to help ascertain if that is going to need to be a part of the project, Mayor. Maintenance warm storage facility, another kind of perennial outlier and towards the end of the CIP. Again, we've got sweepers and equipment that just lives outside all winter when we're not sweeping, and it's pretty hard on equipment and end dumps and things like that. So it's a warm storage facility. There was a time when the state was funding and there were other funding opportunities. I think Keena got one, and we got this on the list, and we've kind of kept it on the list. Again, a project where we're seeking grant funding and outside funding to help us achieve that project specific towards equipment or maintenance or warm storage. Another playground equipment project, Farnsworth this time, install new playground equipment. Farnsworth includes replacing the existing equipment and new fall protection. It's typically the lifespan of most playground equipment is about 15 to 20 years. The main playground equipment components of Farnsworth, they were installed in 2009. So that's why we've got it on the outliers of our 5-year CIP, so we can start planning accordingly right about now. City Hall improvements. This is a project we looked at a number of years ago, fairly in depth. It's a lower priority at FY30, but this is similar to the library where we would remodel for operating efficiencies, improved customer service as they come into the building, as well as additional workstations as we've grown modestly with a few positions. So yeah.
And Mr. Mackler.
Thank you. Just thought off the top of my head, we had some security concerns. Is that going to be taken into place in the new remodel projection ideas?
They are, yes. That was one of the things that was addressed. We have, they're not, architectural drawings, more like renderings using SketchUp and Revit and things like that, that a professional architect did help. And it did address some of the security issues that we asked him to consider. So, but it's a conceptual level, not an architectural level. So it definitely would. Anytime we're looking at our city facilities, and particularly public ones, that's a critical component. The last one in FY30, Ice Arena exterior siding, stain exterior wood siding, install metal siding to match the adjacent field house. This is a project that, it's kind of like replacing the doors in the ice rink that we did for big bucks. We had doors before and we have doors now. It doesn't feel like you're, gaining or achieving anything, but the cladding on that building does need attention, just like it would on your house or a roof. So that's why we've got it programmed for FY30. And then finally, kind of the end of the CIP, street rehabilitation reconstruction. This is acknowledging that our street condition assessment report is going to identify prioritization of reconstruction, rehabilitation, and treatment to various streets in the city, whether they're gravel or paved. Those are going to include, crack sealing, seal coating, shoulder work, all prioritized through a PACER rating system, and that our transportation network, hasn't received a lot of capital funding in the past. It's because we've been proactive. But like anything, we need to plan ahead and fund ahead of time, so we don't have the ugly deferred maintenance reality that many agencies do. As noted earlier, by Vice Mayor Parker, ice arena floor and dasher board system. We acknowledge that this other separate component is hanging out there in the 3 to 5 year range. 3 to 5, 3 is that mechanical plant system. 5 or longer is the flooring and the dasher boards, and that's straight from the consultant's report. There are no current existing leaks in the refrigerant tubing in the flooring, but it's of the age where they may start cropping up. And what the consultant noted is that it's a bit of a whack-a-mole, so you can fix one, and then a little bit later, a year later, maybe 2 show up, and you fix those, and then 3. So again, planning ahead, that the flooring and the dasher board system are on the docket, and then when we get the design done and we have a better idea of costs, then we can decide about cost efficiencies. Is it better to do it all at once and find funding necessary to do that, or do we phase it? And what's the cost? So, and the final one, South Fire Reed Avenue construction. I spoke briefly about this as an example of a project where, we're going to seek outside funding that will provide a lot of opportunities that the city's seeking, whether it's residential housing, whether it's another collector street to relieve congestion and traffic, et cetera. But that is a right of way that's unbuilt that cuts right through the middle of town. So. And now we have a whole nother CIP, my favorite. I'll be quick. If that is okay, Mayor. I will promise you more than that.
Any last minute questions?
On the general fund?
Seeing none, then we'll conclude.
I just need 4 minutes, Mayor. And this one will be really easy. This is the utility fund 5-year CIP. There's no change from last year's. So last year we did not embark on any of the 5-year CIPs from last year because we focused on some critical infrastructure, and that's our dewatering project, also our blowers. We brought these to council as a mid-year appropriation, the other avenue for funding capital projects. Those rose to the critical nature and priority that we focused on those. The projects in the CIP remained, and so we're proposing no change. I'm happy to go through any one of those if anybody has a burning desire to know about the aerobic digester. And now or later, please, call me or email me. I worked with Rob and John in the plant on these. We have robust data on each one of these projects and why they're important, because these affect utility rates and ratepayers. It's all part of the calculation in the rate study. So projects in the utility fund are scrutinized just the same as they are in the general fund.
Is the Marydale repair work on that?
The Marydale repair work is on here. We're hopeful that we're able to get grant funding for that as we applied for it, and it's in the pipeline, but not
Not approved yet.
correct.
Anything else? Anything else from the council? Seeing and hearing none, we'll conclude this at 5:49, even though we got a 1 minute late start.